Hello, and welcome to another episode of Double J's List. If you get a chance, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. I would really appreciate it. Today, I'm going to talk about inexpensive, reliable used cars. There's a number of reasons why you might be looking for an inexpensive, reliable used car in today's world. Number one, our economy has been absolutely crazy lately, and you might be out of a job, or maybe your 401k lost a ton of value, whatever it may be. Inflation, everything's gotten more expensive, so something has to give. I wanted to make or you're just looking to save more money and just be a little bit smarter, like you're following kind of a Jim Cramer financial advisor kind of model of a car is a depreciating asset, and it's almost foolish to spend, $80,000, $50,000, whatever it may be on a new or a slightly used vehicle, when all you're really trying to do is go back and forth to work, move your family and friends around, and do your grocery shopping or whatever other errands that you run. Why spend that much money on a vehicle? So this is basically for someone who's looking for a car like under $10,000, maybe even in some cases under $5,000. This is going to give some guidance on what are some good purchases in that world. So you can be surfing around like Facebook Marketplace, or you can be surfing around Craigslist or any of the other some of the other websites that offer browsing of cars for sale. So before I get into the actual cars, there are 4 factors that you need to look at when you're looking at these cars. Number one, and I think is the most important thing, especially here in northern state, this also applies to coastal regions near the ocean, is rust. So if a car has rust, it's one of the hardest things to actually fix, because once it starts, it's really hard to stop. And it makes things really hard to work on, and it can actually compromise the structure of the vehicle. So the first thing you got to do is open up the hood, take a look at all of the metal hardware parts underneath the hood. What you're looking for is brown rust on like the bolts, the clamps, all of that sort of thing. And you're going to be looking at the aluminum parts, because there's a lot of aluminum in cars these days. You're going to be looking for a whitish kind of film, or kind of, it's what it's called is oxidation. All that is indicating that the vehicle has been around salt. So in the cases of the northern states up here, when you're driving on a road that's been covered with salt to melt the ice, cars' wheels spin that salt and mist in the air, and then it gets under the hood of the engine and starts all of that stuff to happen. That's an indicator that the car has been around. A lot of that stuff makes it a whole lot harder to work on. And then if you're near the ocean, that mist is in the air and it gets underneath the hood and everywhere in the car. So that's really important to look. Now, the other important part with rust is to bring a really good flashlight. You're going to have to get on your hands and knees and look underneath the vehicle. Look underneath. You're going to look at all the metal parts. You're going to see like things like the brake lines and the fuel lines that are like basically small metal pipes that are underneath the car. You're going to look for rust on those. If you get a leak from a rusty fuel line, you're looking at problems with potential fire. When you're looking at the brake lines and rust breaking through on those, you're looking at a loss of braking. Dangerous situations, you don't want to deal with it, and mechanics hate working on rusty parts. The bolts break, and it's just harder to work on. And you're just finding out if you see actual rust in the structure of the car, any of the body parts where it looks soft, take your finger, poke it, see if it actually is falling apart. You don't want that car. That's something that's structurally compromised or can become structurally compromised down the road. You don't want that. So number one thing, stay away from rust. Number 2 is age. Age is something that it affects the quality of a car. So think of it this way. So cars have a lot of rubber, have a lot of plastics, different materials all in them. And as those materials age, they dry out, they become brittle, they crack. And that, like when you have a 25-year-old car, like these things just start breaking. So it becomes more challenging to keep that car functioning because of these things. So the newer car that you can afford, the better off you are. So after that, after rust and age, I have miles. Now, this is kind of obvious, right? Because the more miles that are on a car, the more wear it should incur, right? So obviously, you're going to want to shop for something with the lowest miles that you can possibly afford, but I put it third in the list because age and rust, I think, are actually more important than the miles that are on the car. And then finally, 4, I've done maintenance and repair history. Now, the list of cars that I've assembled here is pretty reliable and robust, so it isn't as important versus, say, purchasing an exotic car, a European car, one of the higher end ones, because these cars can handle a lack of maintenance better than something more exotic, like I said. However, it is still important, and it is something like if you're buying from somebody who's owned the car for 5 years before or whatever, they should be able to produce like, hey, I've had the tires replaced on this date. I had an oxygen sensor replaced on this with some receipts. And you can see like, hey, this car was really well taken care of. That is still pretty important, and it's something that you should ask for when looking at one of these cars. Now, my recommendations that are on this list are things that are mostly cars. I didn't list too many trucks or SUVs, only because of value for money. We're looking at trying to save money here, right? And right now, cars are not as desirable as SUVs and trucks. People really, really want SUVs and trucks, and I'm not denying that they are more versatile for a lot of reasons. However, if you really sit back and think about what you use your vehicle for, do you really need the extra cargo space of an SUV? Oh, hello, Blue. Do you really need the extra ability to carry large items like from a pickup truck? I would say 90% of us out there don't. I myself, it's every now and then it would be handy to have this sort of thing, but do I need to drive a truck around year-round to do this? Not so much. Chances are you might, if you're a more than one vehicle house, have one SUV and then one car. That way you have that SUV when you need it, but you don't need 2 gigantic vehicles more than likely when you already have one in the fleet, right? So something to think about. And that's why I'm making these recommendations. So we're going to move on to the first recommendation, and that is pretty much most Toyotas that are affordable. This is pretty obvious. Toyota has one of the best reputations in the world for making some of the most reliable cars. And basically, you're going to want to take a look at like Camrys, Corollas, Priuses, Yaris's. If you're not looking for a big thing, but they're all great bets. You can't really go wrong with any of these Toyotas. Try to avoid the newer models that have turbos and the CVT transmissions. But chances are in this price range, you're not going to see any of that anyway because these cars are going to be a little bit older. The biggest challenge with Toyotas is what I call the Toyota tax. And what that means is since these cars are such great used cars, they hold their value really, really well. So unfortunately, you're going to be looking at older cars with higher mileage that for this price range versus some of the other ones I'm going to recommend later on the list. And that's just the reality of the situation. The cars are really that great. Some ways to get around the Toyota tax, as I call it. There was a sub-brand that no longer exists, but the used cars are out there, Scion. A lot of them were based on other Toyota products. It was kind of like a sportier or customizable brand that they tried to raise, and it wasn't successful. The reality situation was they're all Toyotas. They're all really great cars, and you might be able to save a few bucks if you buy a Scion versus buying a Toyota because it's just not as recognized as Toyota, but it is essentially buying a Toyota. Another wild card is, and they're starting to get a little bit older, so it's getting a little harder to find, but Pontiac Vibes were really made in the same plant on the same assembly, using a lot of the same parts as the Toyota Matrix. It was just an agreement between General Motors and Toyota, and they're fantastic cars. They share a lot of stuff also with the Corolla. You really can't go wrong with the Pontiac Vibe, and that's a defunct General Motors brand, so like there's probably a pretty good discount versus a similar Matrix of the same, but you could probably get a lot for your money going that route. All right, so along the same lines as Toyota, there's Honda. Again, the only really big difference I've ever noticed with Honda is they're not quite as reliable, but they're pretty darn close to Toyotas, and the exchange for that is you get something that's a little more engaging to drive. I've always found Hondas to be fantastic to drive versus Toyotas are a little bland for the most part. But again, still pretty darn reliable. Fits are amazing, tiny little cars that have a ton of space inside, and they're inexpensive. Honda fits, you can't go wrong. Honda Civics, if you want a little more space, a little nicer car. And then if you need even more space, you can go to the Accord. All of them are really great. Like I said before, avoid CVTs, but for this price range, you're probably not going to see too many CVTs. And the turbocharged models, those are all kind of newer too. You're not going to see too many there. But like, again, pretty much try to find a rust-free Honda and you're probably going to be okay. All right, next I'm going to move up to one that I think presents even more value for money, and that is Mazda. Mazdas don't get the same recognition that Honda and Toyota do, and they are fantastic cars, especially what happened in around 2014, 2015. Mazda was partially run and owned by Ford. They pulled out, and Mazda became on their own, and since they didn't have Ford watching over them, they basically made the quality of the cars much, much better. They didn't have like kind of the bean counter accountants or whatever. But even the Mazdas that were made during the Ford era were really good. The thing you have to watch out for them is rust. But like a Mazda 3, a Mazda 6, Mazda 5, all very, very good vehicles. Again, watch out for rust. And then, let's see, anything that's after 2014 or newer Mazda 3, anything that's 2013 or newer Mazda 6, they were all more of the Mazda developed clean cars, and they seem to be holding up better. Plus, a lot of them have the Sky Active drivetrains, which are Mazda's own design. Very, very good, good fuel economy, good quality, fantastic cars. Have been rated really, really well in consumer magazines such as Consumer Reports, but are often overlooked. The Mazda CX-5 is one of the few crossovers I'm going to recommend. If you can find one of those in your budget, can't go wrong. Fantastic cars. Mazda 2s, that's another one. If you're looking for like an absolute budget cheap car, get a lot of car for your money for a Mazda 2 when you're talking as far as mileage and condition, that sort of thing, because it's a tiny little hatchback. Only ones I would avoid would be like the turbocharged ones, and the ones that would fall into this price category would be like the Mazda Speed models. Awesome enthusiast cars. They're going to require a little more tender love and care to keep them functioning, just because they're a little more finicky. They're a little high strung. Awesome cars, but if you're looking for something that's inexpensive to run, that may not be the best path to go. But all the ones that don't have turbos, fantastic cars. Related to the Mazdas, what would be the last generations of the Ford Focus and Ford Fiesta. So they were co-developed by Ford and Mazda together, and they kind of have a bad reputation because on their automatic transmission models, they used their own dual clutch transmission. Ford did. And the dual clutch had a clutching mechanism that was a dry clutch. So most of these dual clutch automatic transmissions by other manufacturers, they have the clutch mechanism in a fluid. So it basically keeps the clutch cool and prevents wear. Where Ford tried to do it as a dry clutch, and the clutches would wear out really fast, causing transmission failures and weird shifting and things like that as they got older. Therefore, the cars got a terrible reputation. But if you're willing to drive a manual transmission, it gets rid of pretty much the biggest issue that is with the car, and they're actually really great to drive. They have some of the same rust issues that the Mazdas do, obviously, because they're designed in similar ways. But if you find a clean one with a manual transmission, it's going to be a darn reliable car, and you'll probably actually do really, really well because like people go, oh no, Fiestas had a lot of problems with their transmissions, and Focuses had problems with their transmissions, but the manual one didn't. So you can kind of win on that world if you're looking for an inexpensive, good car to drive and you're willing to drive a manual transmission. All right, moving on. I'm going to get a little bit more obscure here, and that is pretty much any General Motors product with a 3800 V6. You'll open the hood, it says 3800, 3800. This engine was phenomenal. Not only do they run consistently over 200,000 miles, they're very easy to work on. Mechanics really like them. Everything is accessible. If they break, one of the few common problems is intake manifold gaskets, but you get plenty of warning. They usually have a check engine light that comes on. You get it addressed, it's done, and you just keep driving it. One of the weak points is the transmission, but if you're drive it pretty realistically and well, and you're not really beating on the car, it should be fine. And they're really, for a transmission replacement, aren't the worst and most expensive to repair. And you're talking problems well over 100,000 miles typically. The best ones were the Series 3. It'll actually say 3800 Series 3 on top of the engine. They were available in the 2004 to 2008 Pontiac Grand Prix, the 2005 to 2009 Buick LaCrosse, and the 2006 to 2008 Buick Lucerne. The rest of the car is General Motors standard stuff. It's going to be kind of inexpensive feeling inside. Except the Buicks, I guess, are slightly more luxurious, but a lot of cheap plastic. Typical weird American car kind of problems on the interiors and things like that. But the engine and drivetrain are really, really rock solid. Then there was another, the Series 2 engines were on a ton of other cars. There's too many to list. What I would recommend, go to the Wikipedia page and search Buick V6, because this engine was originally developed by Buick in the 1960s, and it had evolved into this thing into the 90s and aughts that wound up just being a great engine. It's really sad they discontinued it in 09. They even made like supercharged versions that made a lot of power, but again, that transmission, it's a little weak, so you throw more power at it, it's going to be a little more prone to failure. So I might avoid the supercharged ones. But at the same time, it's a lot of cool power and makes a good noise. So, again, all of these products are really, really good. Strongly recommend. Right, next up they're called the Panther body cars. These are Ford Crown Victorias, Mercury Grand Marquis, and Lincoln Town Cars. They stopped making these in 2012. So however, they were really, really heavily produced. You'll see them as taxi cabs a lot. You'll see them as police cars back in the day. But there's also a lot of folks who bought them in their elder years and drove them sparingly, usually in nice warm climates wherever they went to retire. So there's a lot of them with low miles that are in really, really good shape. Like anything, I would advise buying like the newest one that you can possibly get that's rust-free, so on and so forth, like I've said a few times in this video. But they're all pretty darn good. They shared a lot of the same platform parts. There's lots of parts available. Mechanics like working on them. There's tons of good stuff about these cars. They ride incredibly well. They're like a big, old, stereotypical body-on-frame American car. And people who own them absolutely love them. My dad has one right now as a winter car, and is an old Grand Marquis, and he absolutely loves it. And I like driving it. It's just they're good cars. They're cheap to run. They're simple. They have a big V8. You can't really go wrong. The fuel economy is okay for the size car that it is. Not a bad car to buy. My next one is a little bit of a wild card. Only because this brand doesn't have the best reputation for reliability. I still hold them close in my heart. But these actually were pretty darn reliable. Any Volkswagen, Jetta, Passat, Golf, Rabbit, or Beetle that has the 2.5 liter 5-cylinder engine. So this engine was really interesting. It was developed by Volkswagen. What they did is they took their V10 engine that they were using in the Audi R8 and the Lamborghini Gallardo, and basically re-engineered half that engine into an inline 5, used some less exotic and more inexpensive parts to build up the engine itself, and basically developed it for the U.S. market. Volkswagen was finally starting to understand that their U.S. customers weren't as good at maintaining their cars as their European customers, especially in Germany. Like they just take a lot of pride in the maintenance and taking care of their cars, where here in America, we just kind of use cars. They're just appliances, right? So this engine was designed, I don't want to say to be neglected, but it can take a little bit of neglect and it'll continue running. There's a lot of these engines out there that have over 200,000 miles and they're still running wonderful. They have a timing chain, no timing belt, so it's less maintenance. I haven't seen too much out there as far as those chains and the tensioners and the guides failing like other VW engines that have chains. They're relatively simple and great. They make a good sound. They get okay fuel economy. they make okay power. It's nothing like outstanding out in that world as far as performance and efficiency, but they're just good, inexpensive, reliable cars. And the automatics seem to hold up really well. The manuals seem to be okay. You can't really go wrong either way. And if it were me purchasing one, I would probably lean towards a Passat. It's that new body style of Passat that just ended like a year or two ago. And they are just really, really huge inside. Tons of interior space, tons of trunk space. Makes a lot of the platform that it's on. So that would be the way I would go. The Beetle's kind of fun because it's just a quirky, fun vehicle. You can get that engine in that. Golfs and Rabbits, they're all great. You know, you can't really go wrong. So anyway, I'm sure there are other vehicles on this list that I could recommend and maybe I've forgotten or just neglected to put on this list. Leave a comment below, put it down there that, hey, you forgot this is a great car, or hey, you know what, you were wrong, that car is terrible. Whatever you want to do, leave a comment. Also, if you'd like to see me make a list like this about pickup trucks or SUVs, realizing they are going to cost a little bit more money, but I could try to do some research on that and I figure that out. I already have some ideas on where I would go with that. So leave a comment saying that. But anyway, hit the like and hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. And thank you for watching.